We have two significant pieces of breaking news today. The Maple Leafs have announced Matt Murray's heading to LTIR, and the Carolina Hurricanes have extended center Sign Aho on a mega long-term deal. We'll discuss the details of both those scenarios coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a couple of pieces of significant news to discuss here today. First up, let's discuss the new contract extension for the Carolina Hurricanes and their number one centerman, Sign Aho. Now, he has been rumored to be getting a long-term extension. This is not a huge surprise, but it is nice to see that they finally get it done. I know there's been talk that Don Waddell and the Hurricanes were hoping to sign him for 8 years, and that he wanted to try to remain a Hurricane for the remainder of his career, or at least a significant portion thereof. Obviously, we know Sign Aho ended up signing an offer sheet with the Montreal Canadiens the last time his contract was up. Waddell said that obviously they discussed that after the situation. Obviously, the Hurricanes matched that. He did not go to Montreal, and it's been water under the bridge ever since. But if anything, Montreal only helped him get the contract resolved a little bit sooner last time around. But this time they get it done on their own. He gets an 8-year contract extension with an average annual value of $9.75 million. So that's a pretty significant chunk of change. It's also Sign Aho's birthday today, so quite a day for this to be official and announced. So happy birthday, Sebastian. You just became a whole heck of a lot richer. It's going to push his career earnings north of $120 million, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it. The contract details do include a $2 million signing bonus each year. There is a change in each year when they're paid out. Some are paid in the summertime, some are paid in the fall. That's probably due to combination of making it as foolproof as possible for buyouts and trades. Obviously, he does get a full no move and a full no trade, so he cannot be sent to the minors on waivers, and he can't be traded without his permission in the first 7 years. In the final year, it goes from a full no trade down to a modified no trade where he can block 15 teams. So basically half the league would be a yes and just over half would be a no. So ultimately, this is a pretty substantial deal for Hurricanes and Aho. It's the richest deal in Carolina Hurricanes history. We know they're not exactly the team that likes to pay out the big bucks, and it's not so much that they don't like to pay the big bucks. They kind of get labeled as being a frugal team. But I think more than anything is they don't like to pay players what they're not worth. Like, they don't like to overvalue their players. They have a model they go by, and they determine what your value is. And if you think you're worth a whole lot more, then they're going to tell you that you're welcome to go find that elsewhere. And if you can't, then maybe they'll consider keeping you around for a smaller amount. That's what they've done business with some of these other players. They did it with Dougie Hamilton. They did it also with Tony DeAngelo, of course, before reacquiring him this past week. But it's not the first time we've seen this. But with the players that they feel are worth it, they'll give you the money. Obviously, this is a long-term contract to keep him in the mix there. Of course, we know Aho likes being in a Hurricanes uniform. He likes the coach, likes his teammates, and they've had a lot of success. So why not keep that going and try to get the ultimate goal and get themselves a Stanley Cup? So personally, I think this is a good contract. It's certainly going to impact the market. I know this is only the second 8-year extension we've seen this offseason. He joins Elias Sorokin in that club. I know the tweet on Twitter that Frank Saravalli put out this morning kind of got a lot of people off, kind of thrown off a bit, because if you just get the notification on your phone, you don't get the full snapshot, just like the first sentence. He says that Sign Aho signs 8-year extension, joins Isles, Elias Sorokin, but you can't see it's kind of cut off, kind of cutting people like whoa, hold on here, because obviously there's another Sign Aho. He plays for the Islanders. You're wondering, was there a trade? Is this the Islanders Aho? What the heck is going on? I know there were some confused people before they had a chance to fully read the news release. But the centerman for the Hurricanes gets $9.75 million over 8 years, a well-deserved contract. Now, as I mentioned, the other big news today comes out of Toronto. We've been talking a lot about the Leafs the last couple of days, mainly because of the arbitration case with Ilya Samsonov and what this did to their salary cap situation. Obviously, he got, I think, a little bit more money than the Leafs were hoping for, which has a definite impact here on their salary cap situation. You would have had to think they would have known that they were going to lose the arbitration case. Like, they had to know that, right? I mean, the way they were offering like 2.4, he was looking for 4.9. I don't know why they didn't try to resolve that differently, but irregardless, it's done now. It gets a 1-year deal, and probably more money, like I said, than the Leafs wanted to pay. But because of that, that's probably an extra $1 million that they were hoping was not going to be part of their salary cap. So it's obviously caused a bit of an uproar with how do they manage this now. Now, of course, Matt Murray has been the big debatable player throughout the offseason. What's going to happen with Murray? Are they, because most people feel like they don't want him in their net. They're either going to trade him, buy him out. Is he going on a long-term injury reserve? What is it? Well, now we know the answer. It's been confirmed because the Maple Leafs have announced it, that Matt Murray is out indefinitely and will be starting the season on long-term injury reserve. Now, we got a heads up on this from Elliotte Friedman back, I want to say, maybe a week to 10 days ago, when, of course, that was before the Samsonov contract was settled, and we all knew that Brad Treliving had made mention earlier in the offseason that they weren't going to be doing any buyouts in the first window, but they will get a second buyout because they had RFA business to take care of, and wouldn't rule it out for that portion of the offseason. But now we know it's not going to be Murray. But as Friedman said, he had heard that Murray might not be eligible to be bought out because he wasn't considered healthy. Now, I know there's a lot of confusion on social media this morning, and I kind of joined that group. I mean, this is very confusing. Matt Murray was injured, I can't remember the exact date, but near the end of the regular season, missed the last chunk of games, missed the entire first round of the playoffs. But in round 2, when Samsonov went down with injury, Matt Murray was activated and brought back and backed up Joseph Woll in the final couple games. So he was deemed healthy and able to back up at the end of the regular season. What has changed? What has happened? It seems sketchy. I understand that. Now, the one thing here that I will caution you of is Matt Murray has dealt with multiple concussions. Now, concussions can be a tricky injury and can be difficult to understand, especially if you haven't dealt with it yourself, which I know personally I've been fortunate to not, but I do know some people that have, and of course we've seen it a lot in the NHL. The only thing I can think of is that since the season's ended, that some of the concussion symptoms have returned, and maybe he's been advised that he shouldn't play. Now, my only thing that I'd like to see, because it creates, like I said, a suspicious-looking situation, is I'd like to see teams be a little bit more forthcoming with information so that it wasn't so suspicious-looking. Because a lot of fans are going, well, if he was healthy on the last day of the season for them and was in the game, how is he could not be healthy now? Was there another injury that took place while doing off-season training? Was there concussion symptoms that came back? Like I said, they should provide clarity because it looks bad. And this is why people harp about the LTIR rule to be changed. Now, I'm sure in the end, the team that's doing it, those fans, they typically don't complain because it doesn't negatively impact them. It's the rest of the league that doesn't like it. We've seen Tampa go through this on multiple occasions. Of course, even Vegas, when they won the Cup last year. Like both the Tampa Cup wins and the Vegas win, like we've seen a couple of Stanley Cup championships lately where LTIR use seemed very questionable. Like look at Vegas last year, Mark Stone. They timed it out well. He knew he needed to have another back procedure. They got it done right, so he was able to miss the rest of the regular season, so they were able to add. And then he come back for game 1. Went on, he and even going into the first game in that first series in round 1, Mark Stone didn't look great. He got better as they went. And I think it's fair to say that his back could be an issue that comes and goes because of the nature of it. But anyways, it just looks sketchy. Now, the thing here is this is not going to solve all of the Maple Leafs issues. Even with Matt Murray going on long-term injury reserve, they're still going to be about $2 million over their cap. Now, they're spent way above the cap, obviously, counting the Matt Murray and now the Jake Muzzin contracts that are going to have 1 year each in LTIR. Okay? So those two combined contracts add up to a significant amount of money. Now, you look around on what they have now. According to the roster is structured between Cap Friendly or even on Puckpedia, they have 13 forwards, 7 defensemen, 2 goalies. There really isn't an easy solution here. They don't have that many players that will be waivers exempt that they could just move down and create the space. They do have some guys that meet that criteria, but they're going to, you can't. So here's the example. So you got Matthew Nyes, you got Holmberg, and Robertson. They're all on the 13 forward roster in the forward group. Okay. Now, those 3 contracts, if you add all 3 of them together, they would be more than enough because they're $2.068 million. Adding up 2 of the 3 is not going to get you there. Okay. And really, do you want to demote 2 of them? You really don't, because then you're going to be down to 11 forwards. You're going to be forced to play 11-7. But if you move 2 of them, like I said, you're still not there. You'd have to move a defenseman down 2. You couldn't play 11-7. You'd be playing a player short. That's not ideal. Do they want to start the season playing short and then use emergency call-ups? Will the league let them do that? That's complicated, and I don't know the answer right off the top of my head. And it's not ideal no matter what. Not really the way you want to start your season. You can't demote all 3 of these guys. You're down to 10 forwards. They're also making the smallest amounts of anybody on the roster. So to me, you have a couple options. You're probably going to have to trade 1 or probably 2 players, depending on, of course, their contract status. Now, I don't know if the Leafs would really look at their roster and really prefer to trade anybody, but you get Connor Timmins, who is likely going to be either your number 6 or number 7 defenseman. He's making $1.1 million. So that's a big help. So if you demote him, or trade him, if you can get him off your books and take back a draft pick or a prospect that's not going to be on your roster, something of that nature that's not going to impact your cap, okay, that frees up 1.1. The other option on top of that, even if you throw in Matthew Nyes, who has the biggest contract amongst the 3 younger players between him, Holmberg, and Robertson, Nyes makes the most. Even sending him down to the minors and going with the 12 forwards, which is totally okay, and moving Timmins, you're still going to be a little bit short. So that doesn't work. So to be honest, I think they're going to be looking to a guy like a Sam Lafferty. Of course, he's making over $1 million. So Lafferty and Timmins together would be enough to clear the space. So you'd be down to 12 and 6 and not have any room for call-ups. You don't have any extra players, and it's super tight. Unless they decide to do something different. But that would be an easy solution to become cap compliant. Otherwise, they still have this buyout window that's here now. They're officially in the buyout window. They didn't place anybody on waivers today to be bought out. If a player has a full no move, they don't need that. I don't think the Leafs have a player that really meets that criteria that would be in that category. Now, because this was the second window through arbitration, the player that would be bought out if they did that would have to be somebody making $4 million or more. Okay, that's why a lot of people were looking to TJ Brodie. As much as it's not ideal, could they buy him out? Because the way his contract is structured is they would actually get $5 million cap relief. It would solve everything. Now, to be fair, I believe they're even allowed to re-sign him because he becomes a UFA and they could sign him for far less money. Brad Treliving did this before with Michael Stone in Calgary. He bought out Stone and then re-signed him for a much cheaper amount. So, is that an option? Like, you got to look at all the different things here to do. I don't know what the Leafs are going to do here. Obviously, it's complicated. But the Leafs are far from done. But I would like to see some more transparency on the Murray situation, because when a player is healthy and all of a sudden there's no explanation, you're in the offseason, oh yeah, he's going to be on LTIR. You got to look at, this is basically sending him to Robodot Island. For those of you that have been around long enough to know what that means. It just doesn't look right. Now, is it possible the doctors could argue that Murray shouldn't play hockey and is not healthy? Maybe, I don't know. He seems to be made of glass and gets hurt every time you turn around. You could just probably poke him and he'd fall over and break a bone, or and get hurt. That's just the way his career's gone in the last 2-3 years. It just seems like the slightest little bump sets him off. Not trying to be mean or anything, but that's just the way it's gone. That's just reality with Murray. He just can't stay healthy. So I don't know. I just would like to see an explanation because of the fact that it doesn't look good. And it would certainly, quiet down a lot of fans if they had a legit explanation. So we'll see what happens, but there's certainly more moves going to come from the Leafs, whether it's another buyout. If that's going to happen, we'll know within the next day or so because their window will be closed. Of course, trades can take any time, could be right up to training camp. Difficult to say. They can be over 10% of the salary cap until opening night. So they got time to figure out the rest if they don't go the buyout route. But let me know what you think the Leafs are going to do and how do they get themselves cap compliant for day one of the regular season. And can they do so with any breathing room? Or are they going to be down to 12-6 and no room for call-ups and forced to use the emergency rule like they were doing a lot last year? Let me know your thoughts and we'll talk about it in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.